Greetings, everybody. This is Dr. Cox here, just with a little extra quick mini lecture. So yesterday, which was June 1st, marked the 100-year anniversary of the most deadly incident of racial violence that the U.S. has ever seen, the Tulsa Massacre. So you've likely heard or seen some recent news stories acknowledging this event, yet if you are like most Americans, myself included, you likely didn't hear about this massacre in schools growing up. And in this short video, what I want to do is just give you a quick overview of the Tulsa Massacre and touch on a few of the many other race massacres that have happened throughout U.S. history. So following World War II, Tulsa, Oklahoma was known for its very affluent African-American community. This was known as the Greenwood District. And so Greenwood featured over 40 blocks of thriving businesses. And this was known at the time as Black Wall Street. This may be something that you've heard before. And so in June of 1921, however, white jealousy and chagrin, people were just upset over this thriving Black community, as well as, of course, deep-seated racism and prejudice that led to a series of events where thousands of white Americans systematically destroyed the Greenwood District and killed hundreds of Black Tulsans. Now, this event, this horrific event, was spurred by a few things. First, the U.S. was experiencing increased racial tension after World War I, which included the ongoing lynchings of Black Americans by everyday white citizens, as well as a resurgence of white supremacist groups like the KKK. Now, second, leading up to this particular massacre, a young Black teenager by the name of Dick Rowland was accused falsely of assaulting a white woman. And this accusation itself, it was enough to mobilize the white citizens in Tulsa. The Tulsa Tribune at the time even printed an editorial calling for Rowland to be lynched, right? Again, all based on this false claim. Now, so what ended up happening was that a mob of white people in this area, they went to the courthouse to demand that Rowland be handed over to them so they could lynch him. They clashed with a small group of Black veterans who had gone to the courthouse to protect Rowland. So there was some fighting and shooting that broke out, and that lasted throughout the night. So then what happened after that was the National Guard was called in, martial law was declared. And again, largely on a false belief that Black Tulsans were the ones who were instigating this insurrection, right? That was not the case at all. So the authorities came, they disarmed and arrested thousands of Black people in the city. They moved them into internment camps, right? Most of the time we only think about internment camps in terms of Japanese internment after World War II. But we saw this happening in other instances as well. So all these Black Tulsans were rounded up, moved into these internment camps, and then that helped facilitate the massacre that followed, right? As that action left significantly fewer Black people to defend their homes and businesses. And so then the following morning, which would be June 1st, a large mob of white men and boys invaded Greenwood. We're talking about thousands and thousands of white men and boys. They invaded Greenwood. This is, again, the district where all these Black Tulsans were living. This is the district where Dick Rowland lived, along with, again, the rest of the Black Tulsa residents. In this area that we refer to as Black Wall Street. And at the time, again, just to show you the numbers, right? The white mob that showed up, they outnumbered Black residents more than 20-1, right? Tons and tons of people. And so then throughout this day, the white mob went through Greenwood. They shot and killed Black people that they found. They burned and looted these people's homes and businesses. Witnesses also report people flying over the area in planes, dropping bombs and other incendiary devices and shooting. And so the Tulsa police at the time, they did absolutely nothing to prevent the massacre. They even participated. They deputized ordinary white citizens to go out and kill Black people and arrest Black people in this area. And so throughout all this going on, over 35 blocks of Greenwood District were destroyed, along with over 1,200 homes, 60 businesses, a school, a dozen churches, and a hospital, right? And many of the homes that weren't burned were looted, right, by this white mob. Now, the estimated number of Black Americans who died is around 300, but the full breadth of this destruction is not known, right? Countless Black Tulsans also fled the city, never to return. And so what do you think actually happened to all of the white people who enacted this racial violence? Absolutely nothing. No accountability to this day. Nobody has been charged with anything or held accountable at all for what happened in this state and in this city, right? So it's just kind of ridiculous. Now, again, earlier I did mention that there were many, many similar events to the Tulsa Massacre that have happened throughout U.S. history. And so a few notable ones happened in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. This is where self-identified white supremacists enacted a coup against the local government, taking it over, in addition to threatening and assaulting black men for voting, and stuffing ballot boxes to ensure that they were winning. Another incident that we could look back occurred in 1920, right here in Central Florida, in Ocoee. Again, related to black people voting. So in Ocoee, over 50 black residents were killed and an entire black neighborhood was destroyed. And the violence in both Ocoee and Wilmington, it was so severe that it literally changed the demographics of these two areas for decades to come, right? So we think about Ocoee, not a single black person moved back into the city of Ocoee until over 50 years after this massacre happened. So this, you can see some of the long-standing effects of these. Now, all these events were often called race riots, or they used other similar language that effectively masks what actually happened, right? The slaughter and displacement of black Americans, and who enacted the violence? White Americans, right? We want to be specific when we're looking at this language because it matters. Now, these events were actually all intended to maintain white supremacy. And while there are countless examples of violence enacted against black Americans, we could also talk about the violence that happened in similar ways against other non-white groups as well, right? From the earliest times when European settlers came to what is now the US, throughout today, we've seen this happen to lots of different groups that aren't white. So the same type of white supremacist violence continues to happen. So that is just a little bit, just a really quick snippet about the Tulsa Massacre, as well as some of the other race massacres that have happened around our country that have been perpetuated throughout our history. So again, since we're looking at the 1-year anniversary of this, I thought it was just a good time for us to think about this. I challenge all of you to go out and to do some more research on your own to see what other events have happened, what things are going on, because again, most of us aren't getting this information in schools. There's actually a great documentary that just came out on the History Channel specifically about Tulsa. But again, there's lots of information out there that you can find. So I encourage you to go out there, see what you can see if you can learn some stuff, and maybe go out and teach some of your friends. All right, that's it. I'll see you later. Have a great day. Peace.